The Cigar Nerds Podcast.
And welcome to another Tactical Tuesday. Today we're going to be talking all about backup guns. As you can see here before me, and we'll get into what these are here in a minute. But first up, what is a backup gun? Well, as it sounds, it's a backup to whatever your primary EDC is. In kind of mission planning prepping, there's a thing called PACE, which is primary, alternate, contingent, and emergency. So that kind of applies to like all types of plan making and also your EDC. So if your primary is your everyday carry gun, your alternate would be your backup gun. So why carry a backup gun? Well, there's kind of multiple answers to this question. If you're, carrying a gun for employment, like you're a police officer or something like that, shit can always go down, and it's always nice to have a secondary firearm if something breaks. And actually, when I was a police officer, I carried a couple backup guns. I carried, my duty weapon. I carried a compact pistol on my ankle, and then also had another full-size gun that I kept in a bag in the seat next to me. So why carry a backup gun? Because shit happens. Let's be honest. Mainly it's kind of and we'll talk about methods of carrying and where to carry later on. But if whatever your primary weapon is goes down, breaks, runs out of ammo, whatever, sometimes going to a second firearm is quicker than reloading. Or like I said, if something, albeit rare, like just breaks on your primary gun, your secondary is there to back it up. In addition to that, injuries. If you're, somehow your primary hand gets taken out of the fight, a secondary weapon that's kind of on your offside might be easier to take. Or if I'm, let's say I get jumped and I'm having to fight somebody off from trying to take my primary gun, and my primary hand is tied up defending my primary weapon, my offhand is free to go, bring out that surprise tool for later. But also, these can be force multipliers. What I mean by that is, say I'm out and about with my wife and she happens to not be carrying her weapon that day, and something happens. I can always pull out my backup gun and hand that off to somebody else, and now instead of being just me in the fight, there's additional forces to fix whatever the problem is. So yeah, not only is it a backup if your primary weapon goes down, it's something that you can hand off to somebody else who may not be armed in a bad situation to assist you. And also, it's always nice to have just something extra with you. Kind of one of my favorite quotes about backup guns, and oddly enough doesn't come from any of the firearms trainers and influencers I follow. It comes from Han Solo. I'm a big Star Wars nerd. Y'all know that if you've been watching this channel. But in one of the books, I can't remember which one, he's going on a mission to smuggle spies into behind enemy lines, and he's having them install a hidden compartment on the Falcon. And Luke asked him, we know you have a smuggling compartment already on the Falcon. Why would you have them add an extra one? And he's like, well, it's like carrying a blaster. If you got to admit to carrying one, carry two and admit to one. That's kind of always been my philosophy on having a backup gun from Han Solo. All right, so let's move on to what a backup gun physically is and some kind of examples of that. Typically, when you're looking at a backup gun, I want something that's big enough to fight with, but also small enough to not be uncomfortable to carry if I'm already carrying a primary gun. Now, you can also go too small, like something like this. Little 22 Derringer. I say that kind of fall into emergency or contingency, because it's way too small to fight with. And like I said, I would not want to, I'm not an 1800s gambler or a saloon girl this is completely like impractical for a fighting pistol. But if emergency situation, everything else has gone to shit, and that's all you got, that's all you got. But I would probably pick something bigger for a backup gun. Now, kind of first on the spectrum, we've got like, and I'm kind of using these examples of like size and type, but not like a specific recommendation for a backup gun. But I'll give you kind of some pros and cons for each. So first off, we've got your standard 38 revolver Airlight here. Kind of the nice thing about these, they are super reliable and dependable. So it's going to work most of the time. And also they're fairly simple. So if I have to hand this off to somebody in a fight, it's not something that I'm going to have to explain a whole lot of how to work it. Downsides of this is, of course, capacity. I mean, 38's a nice, powerful round, but I've only got 5 in this little guy here, which hopefully get the job done. But a revolver is going to be lower capacity and also slower on your reloads. Which kind of brings me to another point. If something is a backup gun for your primary gun, I always recommend carrying something that has some kind of magazine shareability. So if I'm carrying like a full-size Glock 17 and I'm carrying this 38 as a backup, if my 17's out of the fight and I still got full magazines, that's not going to do me any good with this guy. Now we go to something like this, your P365X, which got a little bit bigger grip. This right here could be a good backup gun for some. I don't personally like it as a backup gun, and this is kind of reason specific to me, is because, like I said, going back to that, what I just mentioned about having magazine interchangeability, this is the only SIG I own, so I don't have any other SIG mags that I could use in this if, like I said, I was using it as a backup gun. But if you are someone who carries a SIG, specifically like any of the 365 genres, so if you carry like a 365 XL, 365 Macro, the more full-size 365s, those magazines should also fit this gun. But you're also kind of limited, like, so if you carry like a 320 or M18, that stuff won't work on this, even though they're the same company. So that kind of a downside. But like I said, if you're a SIG person and you have full-size SIGs, this might make a good backup gun. Kind of the other downside of this is these are not anything with a SIG title on. It's not cheap. So I primarily use this one as a primary weapon when I'm wearing lighter clothing and I want to be a little more concealed. This is something that's got full capacity. I got a 15 round mag for it, but it's small enough, light enough I can wear it to the gym in my gym shorts. So I use this, but not as a backup gun. Also, and once we get into talking about kind of how to carry a backup gun, this one's got the red dot optic on it, and backup gun may be shoved down in a bag in a pocket or something like that. So the more gadgets and stuff you've got on your backup gun, the may get a little dirty or cause some problems there, just because the way these things kind of get carried. Now moving on to what I primarily use as my backup gun is this here Glock 26. Old Gen 3 girl. Reason why I like this as a backup gun, for me, it's simple. I don't have any red dots or anything, any kind of big modifications to this. But also, the main thing is I primarily carry a Glock pistol, either a full size like a 17 or a compact like a 19, and these have magazine interchangeability. This will take any other Glock double stack 9mm mag, with the exception of like the new like slim stuff like the 43. But my 17 mags, I can throw them in here if I need to use this gun, and and I've got extra mags for my primary. It'll take the 17 mags, it'll take the 19 mags, hell, it'll even take like the 33 round stick mags. It looks ridiculous, but it will take it. So that's kind of why I prefer this as my backup gun, because of that magazine interchangeability, and it's like I said, small enough to conceal, but also big enough that I can get, a proper grip on it. So I could fight with this if need be. So now let's move on to kind of methods of how to carry your backup gun. There's a couple different ways, depending on what I'm doing, how I'm dressed. A lot of the times I will use just a pocket holster. Like I said, I can stick this in a jacket pocket. I can stick it in like my left pocket. You can, something to protect the trigger. It doesn't necessarily have to be another inside the waistband holster, but you can. I mean, if you watch the John Wick movies, he carries like one gun at 3 o'clock and like his backup gun on another holster at 4 o'clock. So it's kind of up to what's comfortable for you in the situation. The other option is something like this. This is a Galco ankle holster. This is kind of how I used to carry when I was a police officer. Because I got my big duty belt on. I would usually carry my backup gun, on my ankle. So that's another option. Third option, if you don't want to on-body carry your backup gun, put them in like a bag or something. Like I usually have like a kind of an EDC bag that has just a few little everyday items, and if I'm not wanting to carry my backup gun on me, I will stick it off in that bag. And also, if I'm driving around, if like I said, if something happens, it's a lot quicker to reach over and grab a gun out of my bag than it is to try to draw from my my waist holster while I'm sitting down driving. So yeah, it's like you can find a way that is comfortable to you given whatever situation you're in. So there's kind of no hard rules on how to carry your backup gun. Especially this time of year, winter. This and like most jackets have a nice like chest pocket. That's always a good place to store my backup gun. The final note of where to carry your backup gun. What I mean by that is, one of the reasons you may want to employ a backup gun is if, say, you're injured. So now, or this hand is tied up doing something, and I'm now having to, use my weak hand. Now, you should always train trying to get to your primary gun with your offhand, but for say some reason that's not possible, I want to carry my backup gun, whichever one I'm carrying, somewhere where I can easily acquire it with either hand. If my gun breaks and my right hand's good to go, I can reach over here and grab whatever. But if this hand is out of the fight for some reason, I want to be able to make sure I can get on to this with my left hand. When I'm carrying an ankle holster, I usually carry it on my left leg because I can easily draw that with either hand. Or if I'm carrying a pocket, a lot of times I'll just carry in my left pocket with that, where I can, like I said, if need be, I can get to it with my left hand easiest. But that's just some things to think about. Like I said, pick a nice backup gun, train with it. That's the most important thing, and just figure out what works best for you. That's all I got for you this week. Stay backed up. Maybe we'll do another video where I actually go shoot some of these guys while it's still cold outside.
And you've been watching the Cigar Nerds podcast. Check us out on cigarnerdpodcast.com and on the ESO Network, esonetwork.com. And don't forget, smoke them if you got them. Like, comment, and subscribe.